Doug?
Kevin?
Doug?
Kevin?
Are you out there?
Oh, Kevin, are you okay? Kevin, is quarantine really got to you, brother? Are you okay?
Please tell me there's still wrestling out there, Doug. Is there still wrestling?
There's wrestling. There's just not wrestling fans in the audience anymore, man.
Can we talk about it?
Let's talk about it.
We're all a little stir crazy, like I'm sure everyone else out there is. These are interesting times, and we don't mean to make light because we know there's some heavy stuff going on right now, and a lot more important than wrestling. But Doug, I think we do a wrestling podcast here, don't we?
We certainly try. Between the quarantines, internet problems, and Wi-Fi problems, we're trying to hammer out a wrestling podcast and a wrestling video channel. I'm not going to lie. It's challenging.
Well, there's a lot of challenges out there right now, and yes, wrestling is like any form of entertainment, just an escape, and we all could use that escape right now. So we're going to put away the serious things that are going on in our daily lives in the real world, and talk about how those serious things are affecting the fun world that we use as an escape. So I guess this is the Two Bros Wrestling Show Coronavirus Edition.
If we were monetized, I think you would have just gotten us demonetized by saying the C word. But
True. Very true.
So, man, it is just a weird time out there. Watching wrestling is just it's just weird. That's all there is to it. Watching shows like Raw, SmackDown, without an audience, it's a different experience altogether. It really is.
It is. And, for those watching, obviously, if you are watched to this point in time, you are a wrestling fan as well. So, let us know what you're thinking about what's going on your TV every week. But if you haven't tuned in lately and are just catching us talking about it, right now, WWE and AEW, the two big companies who typically have the advantage over all the other companies, and the fact that all their content is live every week on TV, they're now doing those live shows without an audience. And you never realize, obviously, that the audience is important, getting boos, getting cheers, getting chants, but you just don't realize how much they are missed and how big a part you all are of any live show until that audience is gone.
This is definitely true. I mean, we were just recently at an NXT live show in Columbus before all this got really crazy at the beginning of March. And I think I said it in our show then. Being at a NXT show is so much different than watching it live. Just the magic that's happening with the crowd and the performers, the wrestlers feeding off each other, and even more so than watching it live when you're there. It's just an elevated experience. But now to just watch it without those crowd interactions, I think there are some great promos that have come out of the no audience format. Like I think specifically of the recent Edge promo that he cut on Randy Orton. He comes out, it's a dead serious promo. No, there's no pauses for crowd reaction, but of course we're talking about a seasoned professional and a man still after 9 years out of the game that is at the top of his game who can come out and nail a promo like that. And then I've got to say the king of all no fan promos right now is the thing that Cody Rhodes did with the first AEW no fan show, where Cody just cut an amazing promo, which led in to a really great show, and I think probably the best show I've seen so far of the no audience era. I guess it was what we might as well call it now.
I'm glad you pointed out Edge and Cody specifically, but kudos to all the men and women who are learning to work differently than they've been taught their entire careers. And
yes.
That is the give and take with the crowd. You're correct. The serious promos seem to be better in that you can be quiet and intense. The jokey, like wait for the laugh line, that is dead on arrival when there's no audience to react to
Absolutely.
it. So to me, it seems like we're seeing an evolution in the way these shows are occurring. They're learning. They've actually gotten better. The first couple were almost painful.
I absolutely, and it did the WWE product no favors whatsoever that they had a hard camera pointing at an empty seats. It really, I think, Tony Khan's crew, whoever the director or whoever made the call to have the hard camera pointing up the ramp and have everybody come in that way, that was a winning call, which WWE caught on to quite quickly, I've noticed.
I think that, and in WWE's defense, they had the disadvantage of having to go first. So it was easy for everyone to watch and see what worked and didn't work.
True.
But I definitely think that they picked up a few pointers from AEW. Not only did they cut away from showing the empty seats, they also have, if you've noticed, a lot more in the way of multi-person matches.
Yes.
Because I think one of the lessons that have been learned is the more people you have out by ringside or in the ring, the louder it is. The more if you have one man and one other man and one referee and they're concentrating on each other, it was eerily quiet.
Yes.
AEW on that first show put a bunch of other wrestlers at ringside. Heels and faces were like betting on
the game or the matches. Yeah, absolutely.
So even though it was scripted responses, there was, it made a world of difference between the echo that you heard on the first SmackDown of every little noise in the ring, and then all the ringside chatter with the just 8 or 9 people could make a bunch of noise in an empty building, and the energy level was so much different.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And I noticed that WWE is following that formula because there tends to be almost every match is a tag team match. So you at least got 5 folks in the ring, if not a manager or someone else at ringside.
So let me ask you this, talking about the WWE product and the no fans arena era or whatever this is going to be called eventually. But do you think it helps or hinders the product where they throw to older matches? They throw to things that everybody may or may not have seen already. I mean, we both have the network. Anything they're throwing up as it's filler. But, I think the mindset is that not everybody, not your casually wrestling fan that's tuning in for this has seen this. So let's show this. And it does do a bit to build story because, they weave them into the storyline. We have, Brock Lesnar mowing through everybody at Royal Rumble, leading to McIntyre and things of that nature. But helps or hinders? What do you think?
Well, like, for example, you didn't have the network back in January. So did you watch the Royal Rumble?
I had watched the Royal Rumble on your recommendation because after our NXT show that we went to, I went back and picked up the network, resubbed, and on your recommendation went back and watched the Rumble. But again, we're wrestling geeks. We really are. But for those people out there who haven't seen that, does that actually help them? And how many of those people are tuning in every week?
So me personally, I understand the reason for putting those filler matches in there, and even though I understand it, do I watch it? No, because I've already seen it. It makes my viewing time much less. I can fast forward through it, and they're putting in really long matches because they need a lot of filler.
Right.
Honestly, with the no crowd shows, a 3-hour Raw is going to feel awfully long unless you do things like that to break it up. And, I mentioned Royal Rumble, for example, for you, not knowing you'd already seen it, but you are a wrestling geek. Had you heard that the Royal Rumble was great and you didn't see it the first time, you would probably been stoked on Monday night, like, oh, great, they're showing the whole Rumble.
True. That is a good point. But I guess where I've seen this, I've seen the product that they're putting up there, and I guess the smart in me is like, well, this is just filler, and I've seen this already, but. To me, just like you, I'm fast forwarding through all that stuff because I rarely watch anything other than AEW live. Now, all the WWE product I do watch on the replay after I've DVR'd it, but a lot of times, especially now, to get through the filler that's there, just like NXT that recently aired, where we had pretty much promo packages for 2 hours.
I ask what you thought of that. They went a different way. Instead of the empty arena with some filler matches, they went heavy on the storytelling and just went promo only. The Johnny Gargano, Tommaso Ciampa history, that storyline, that was fantastic. I mean, like from beginning to end, without even like showing, anything more than highlights of matches and the two of them talking about their history together. That had me engrossed.
Right.
But after about an hour of it, and then it went on to other wrestlers, I lost a little bit of interest, to be honest, with the other stories. Like at that point, I wanted to see some matches that weren't happening.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think we probably both watch product like AEW and NXT specifically for the wrestling on those shows. Raw, SmackDown, there's a sense of, at this point, loyalty. I mean, we've been lifelong wrestling fans. We're watching those shows because we know that product. We really do love that product. As harsh as I think we can be on the product, and just all wrestling in general. Well, I mean, when it's bad, it's bad. When it's good, it's good. But NXT is something more sacred, I think, to both of us and to probably other wrestling fans. I mean, really, to other wrestling fans like us. We're watching that. We're watching AEW and NXT for the wrestling and not for like a 2-hour promo special to promote at this point a takeover that's not going to happen.
Well, that's probably a good segue because we've talked about what the main companies are doing with these empty arena shows, but trying to get creative. Empty arena shows, filler, what have you. At this point, Ring of Honor, Impact, a lot of the independents, those folks who have typically recorded 4 or 5 episodes at a time, weeks in advance, they've always been at a disadvantage with spoilers on the internet or the fact that their shows don't have that same live feel. I've noticed I'm watching those shows a little differently. Mm-hmm. I'm actually looking forward to those shows more so than my normal diet of my top tier, because the difference, like, they still have the crowds. Now it's going to catch up with them. I don't know how much any of these companies have in the can. I imagine they're getting close to running out of those kind of additions that soon they'll be affected the same. And I have to get creative, just like WWE and AEW.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've read that, AEW and WWE are trying to get as many shows in the can as they can this week. And I guess for WWE, especially since Orange County just laid down a lot of stricter guidelines for their social distancing and such. So I don't think that they'll be able to use the Performance Center after Thursday or Friday. Sometime very, very soon. I think they may be able to actually shoot their WrestleMania, since it's not going to be live this year. They may be able to shoot some of that at the Performance Center, and I know they have other locations they plan for that, and it's going to be, I guess, a more cinematic experience this year since it's not going to be live, which is probably a really great avenue to take with it. But I'll save a WrestleMania talk for another show. But
we're going to have a special WrestleMania edition, so tune in next week and we'll go match by match with everything that's planned and with the most recent updates, because, as Doug's talking, these things that he's mentioning to you, we would have been telling you something different just 2 or 3 days ago. It's obviously the world is changing on a day-to-day basis. So by the time we get together next week for our WrestleMania show, who knows what we'll be talking about.
This is very true. I mean, at this point, Vince McMahon could decide that, once he watches everything that's been pre-taped for this, that he doesn't like any of it and decides to push WrestleMania to a live event, 2 months from now. I mean, as fast as the world is changing right now in every aspect, to hear that news would not shock me at this point.
So, just WrestleMania, since we'll say the match by match next week, let's just logistically, for those that don't know, we'll update. WrestleMania is now 2 nights. It is not going to be live. It will be pre-taped, mostly in the Performance Center, but they are also now touting different locations. Several of the reasons for this is, as Doug noted, they're afraid that by new government decree, they're going to be shut down and you won't be able to do any shows. So even audience or no audience, just a crew and wrestlers is a dangerous situation. You have too many people together. So to protect against that, they're filming as much as possible. And also, Doug, you might have heard this, they've already got a couple of wrestlers that have are at least under quarantine.
Right. Is it Mysterio and Mysterio and Dana Brooke are under quarantine right now?
But that has changed the booking on those matches. Again, we'll give you all updates next week, but you can see the circumstances here. If you have more of those happen over the next week as you wait for WrestleMania, what if you didn't have a Brock Lesnar or an Undertaker? I mean, it would do some serious damage to your headline matches. So while everyone is healthy and available and doesn't have travel issues or doesn't have a show shut down on them, I understand this is a much better idea than a stubborn, like, let's go forward with doing it in front of a stadium, or let's try to find a way around it. Personally, I would like to have seen a postponement, but if you're going to go ahead with it, I agree with you that this is the way to go. But just for the folks that don't know, that is the way they're going with it. The Hall of Fame has been canceled. Takeover, that is always that weekend. I don't know if you've heard this or not, Doug, but the NXT Takeover matches, a lot of those that were supposed to happen in Tampa are now going to be sprinkled throughout the next few weeks on NXT television.
Right.
Obviously, we've talked TV, we've talked pay-per-view. There's no live product. All Ring of Honor is canceled all the way through the spring. Same for all the other companies. Ring of Honor, that hurts me because I'm missing the Pure title tournament that I had a second row to, so I hope they schedule it. Honestly, right now, there's so much uncertainty. We don't know when things will return to normal again, as far as how long they can even make it last with empty arena shows. If you're not allowed to get together and film empty arena shows, we may be seeing a lot of reruns.
And just on top of that, we also have to remember all the independent wrestlers out there that are scattered throughout. Let's just think of what an event WrestleMania is, where it brings not only the WrestleMania crowd to whatever city it's in, but it's bringing all these independent shows in, all these independent wrestlers. It's a week-long event. You can have event after event after event. I mean, 2-3 weeks ago, if you Google Tampa indie wrestling shows, there's event after event after event that starts like a week before WrestleMania was supposed to happen, leads all the way up to it, goes all the way up to the Raw after it, and even some shows after that. Now, all these indie wrestlers that were looking at actually making decent money, they're out of work right now, and anywhere where, which I'm not sure at this point, where more than 10 people can congregate, maybe some of those indie wrestlers are used to filling bingo halls, with maybe 10 people or less, but that's basically what everybody is performing for right now. And a lot of indie wrestlers are going to be out of work and a lot of out of money.
So I've seen a lot on Instagram and, other social media pleas from some of the individual wrestlers that I follow, or from wrestlers, trying to help their brethren out. But it goes without saying, in this time, if you have a little extra spare cash and you want to support, one of your favorite indie wrestlers, or one of those guys who really relies on the paycheck, go buy some merch. That's about the best thing you can do for them right now. Something directly from them, from their sites, so that that they're getting the proceeds, because it's going to be a hard time if that's the primary way you're feeding your family for a lot of these guys.
Absolutely. And I've wanted to start doing a segment called like a Heel for Real segment on the show, and just look at somebody who's in real life, person who's just played the heel that week. And Braun Strowman sent out some tweets. I think it was Evil Uno, AEW's Evil Uno, that was encouraging people to go out and buy people's merch. Remember these indie wrestlers. And Strowman led off on had some rants about that. I pulled it up here. Here we go with more of somebody pay my bills stuff. If you can't afford to pay your bills, maybe you should change your professions. And I'm not going to read the whole thing or give it the time, but essentially it was a rant about you should be doing something else if you're an indie wrestler and can't afford to pay your bills. And even goes on to point out that he loved bodybuilder or the strong man, and was going to would have loved to have done that, but wasn't making any money out of it, so he bet on himself. And to his credit, his bet on himself did pay off. But for every Braun Strowman, how many indie wrestlers are out there struggling right now making that bet on themselves? And really, this could have been their year. This could have been their time to get noticed in Tampa. But now those guys don't have this chance. I just think, if there is a heel for real, Braun Strowman is it this week.
On the converse of that, I would invite anyone who is interested to go check out the National Wrestling Alliance's YouTube page and look at the you can check out our Facebook page. If you're not subscribed there, go subscribe to the Two Bros Wrestling Show Facebook. I posted it there. Nick Aldis, the world champion of the National Wrestling Alliance, who is an amazing interview anyway. And he completely breaks character, lets you know that this isn't Nick Aldis, the national treasure in NWA. This is Nick, and gives a puts the heel mask off and gets very serious about all the things that they're doing in the wake of this. It's very striking when you compare the fact that you don't even hear the word coronavirus on WWE. I'm sure they're not allowed to say it, but he's addressing it head on. And in fact, they have some NWA T-shirts that they're selling with all the merchandise proceeds going directly to the staff, the cameramen, the ring, all those folks that really are going to be hurting because they have no other way. No one's going to buy their 8x10 or their T-shirt. And so I thought that, it just was a very classy move. So the complete opposite of what Braun Strowman did there. Check out Nil's breaking character.
So what do we call that? The face in this case and the heel for real?
So let's talk about getting that wrestling fix that we all love so well. Obviously, in this time of empty arena Raws and SmackDowns and Dynamites, pay-per-views that are going to a cinematic, presentation or just being canceled or postponed, and as Ring of Honor did with their 18th anniversary show, and the NWA is doing with the upcoming Crockett Cup, and there's a lot of things that are not happening. So let's talk about how you get that fix. We thought we'd go through a few of the promotions that are offering, either through their streaming platforms or online or elsewhere, free events that you can watch so that you can go back and pretend that everything is normal. Let's start with WWE, Doug.
Well, WWE actually has opened up at least some of their network, for free. So as a subscriber myself, I'm not sure what is free to everyone right now, but it is my understanding that at least portions of the entire catalog, I believe all the WrestleManias are free.
The WrestleManias are free. A lot of the documentary content's free. I would recommend any of the podcasts that Stone Cold does. He is an amazing interviewer. If I had to give one for folks to check out why the network is free, go check out Stone Cold Steve Austin spending an hour and a half talking shop with The Undertaker, talking to Mark. And he's talking to The Undertaker. You don't see The Undertaker go out of character very often. This is one of those instances where he goes through his whole career. Two guys of that stature talking for an hour and a half was riveting stuff. So there's one way to get your fix. They just added all the NXT UK and NXT takeovers as well. Any of those would be worth watching, but definitely catch up on your WrestleManias. Check out the Stone Cold podcast. I'd also recommend, if you, for those who haven't seen it, they just did a documentary on FCW, which was Florida Championship Wrestling, and that was their developmental at the time, pre-NXT, and it's where you got your Seth Rollins, your Dean Ambrose, your Sasha Banks, all those folks started there. That is a fascinating watch. So there's a lot of good content on WWE right now on the network. If you've ever thought about trying it out, it's free. Go. If the idea of seeing WrestleMania without a crowd doesn't tickle your fancy, go put on WrestleMania 3 and watch Steamboat Savage again, right? Ring of Honor, they've recently had their 18th anniversary show get canceled. But what they have been doing is they have been posting compilations of some, in celebration of their anniversary, of some of the greatest matches of some of their most high-profile performers. So for those of you that have never seen the indie work, or the pre-WWE work of like Seth Rollins, back when he was Tyler Black, Kevin Steen, not Kevin Owens, El Generico, who most folks know as Sami Zayn, Joe, there are almost 2-hour compilations on each of those individuals that I just named, that there's 2 or 3 matches really from the heyday of when Ring of Honor was the hottest wrestling on the planet, when it was what AEW and NXT kind of are to fans now. So definitely, if you get a chance and need a wrestling fix, that's an offering that's there for free on YouTube, on the Ring of Honor YouTube channel.
So also on YouTube, throwing it back to the WWE, Vice has done, and this isn't WWE content, but Vice has a really, really great documentary, their Dark Side of the Ring. Check out the Benoit series on Vice TV. I'll put links to all this in the descriptions below for us. But it's a really great look at more the man that was Chris Benoit and the troubles he was going through, and just it's still, there's no way to justify what the man did, but clearly there was something not right there, and this paints a very intimate picture of the man and how fragile he was and how he just became broken, really, especially after the death of Eddie Guerrero.
So if you like behind the scenes stuff like that, the Dark Side of the Ring is a great series. It was started last year on Vice. It became the highest rated show in Vice history, so that's why they're back for a year too. They've actually just posted, Doug, the second part of that Benoit. So actually,
Excellent.
the whole first is online.
Oh, I see it here. Yeah, 6 hours ago. Cool.
I don't know if they did the same thing last year when they premiered the series. They showed the first episode for free. If it's still out there, check it out too. It's on the death of Bruiser Brody. And for those who don't remember Bruiser Brody, he was a big star in the 80s. He was killed in the locker room by other wrestlers. It's a fascinating look at a cover-up. And if it's still out there on YouTube, it's worth watching. But the whole series is great. They had the Von Erichs last year, the controversies about the Fabulous Moolah and her legacy. So if you have access to Vice, you can be watching that on your TV, on cable on Tuesday nights. But if you want to get a taste, those episodes that Doug mentioned and the Brody one, I think, are out there on YouTube. And one other thing I'll mention, Doug, National Wrestling Alliance, obviously the Crockett Cup isn't happening. NWA Power, they had episodes in the can, but they chose, unlike Impact, who went forward with theirs, or Ring of Honor, who went forward with theirs with just little tags on the screen like this event is not happening when they're promoting Lockdown or whatever.
Right.
Impact promoting. NWA's gone the route of deciding to table all the episodes. They didn't want confusion in the marketplace, so they're just holding on to the episodes they have in the can, and they're just releasing different content now in place of that. Last week, they dropped the entire NWA 70th anniversary pay-per-view.
Oh.
And that is one that is for wrestling fans. If you've not seen it, and because of the low profile of the NWA, still relatively speaking, you probably haven't. But it's worth checking out because not only is it the 70th anniversary, it's headlined by Nick Aldis taking on the NWA champion at the time, Cody Rhodes, in the main event. And the undercard is completely full of folks that you now will know from like AEW or elsewhere. Sammy Guevara, Scorpio Sky, Colt Cabana is on there. Willie Mack from Impact, as well as Laredo Kid from Impact and AAA. Penelope Ford's on that card. Sam Shaw is on that card, and he's with NXT now. He was the guy we saw, Doug, in Columbus, that had the weird character where he's sliding around the ring and the stalker gimmick and stuff.
That dude is weird in NXT.
Top indie talent, a lot of top what we now know as Impact and AEW talent that were on the undercard of this NWA show, and it's out there for free on the National Wrestling Alliance YouTube channel. So there's still plenty of wrestling to watch, just because there's no fans in the crowd on the daily on the weekly shows.
So really, there is no reason for anybody to be complaining about wrestling during your quarantines, because there is quality content across the globe right now.
I know we're all binging. I heard Netflix actually went down today. I mean, that's how much we're all binging. But yes, for wrestling fans, we hope these recommendations, if these are things you haven't sought out and you're just watching Raw, SmackDown, and Dynamite, and you're needing a different fix because of the situation, go support these organizations by checking out this free content that they're putting out there for you.
And speaking of support, if you like what we're doing here and you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to give us a like, a subscribe, and share this. I think that about wraps it for this. What do you think, Kevin?
I think we covered it thoroughly. Join us next week. We'll talk nothing but WrestleMania. We'll give you our match-by-match breakdown, all the latest news, as well as maybe we'll see if Doug and I can argue. We'll do predictions, see if we disagree on anything.
Oh, I'm up for it. I look forward to that.